In this lesson, I want to talk about drawing hands, because those are another one of those things that can be tricky, but when it comes down to it, all you have to do is break it down into its simple forms, and that will really help you when you go to draw hands. And once again, I want to look at the inside, I want to look at the bones, see how it's made internally to see how that will affect us as we are drawing this externally. So at the very basic, I want to say our hand is essentially two squares. So I'm going to do one square here, stacked on another square here. And this is always a good way to start off when drawing your hand, is get these basic forms. And essentially, these are not just squares. You're essentially thinking of rectangles in perspective here. So if I was to do something like this, this is how I want you to think about these hands. They're not just squares, they are rectangles in 3D form. So this is our palm. The bottom piece here is the palm, the top piece is their fingers. So essentially we have this palm and our fingers stick out from this, right? And then our thumb is going to be on the side. Right, so that's the basic form. But if we look at this in this squares, you got to realize that we're not exactly perfectly square. So I'm just going to make a couple little angles here to show, you have some fingers that are longer than others. And same thing with your palm. Your palm's going to have a little bit of an angle to it. And I'm just going to make a line out here for our thumb for now, and we'll talk about that in a second. So basic form here, we got the palm of our hand, right? This kind of shape here. And then it comes down from here as it tapers to where our wrist would be. So our wrist is going to be down here somewhere. On here we have our fingers. So we got 4 fingers on the top. You can basically divide your hand in half and have the fingers coming out 2 on one side and 2 on the other. And essentially what I'm going to start with is the knuckles. We're thinking about the inside, how things are made. And where the knuckles start. And so one thing you'll notice is that my knuckles are actually below the palm of your hand. And this is going to be super important as we're building our hands to realize that the fingers actually start inside your hand and they're not just all on the outside. So if we were to look at, my bone structure we have here, so the top section, those are phalanges, are our fingers. The metacarpals are the pieces inside our hand, and then the carpals are essentially our wrist bones. So looking at this, if I was to build our structure on top of this, our palm is something like this, and then our fingers, our fingers are like this. So what you notice is the bones, our knuckles, are inside the hand. And you can't tell when you're looking at your palm of your hand, because this is what I'm drawing right now is the palm. But if you flip your hand over, you can really see it. That's what the knuckles are. That's where these 2 bones meet inside the hand. So you got to think about that as we're drawing this. So from there, we're going to put the fingers on here. I'm just going to start with a line. And one thing you're going to notice is I'm not putting them straight up and down, even though that's what I did here. I got these as my fingers. Looking at the bone structure again, and look at this. All our bones for our fingers come out from the wrist. This is our wrist here, and they all are attached to here and flare outwards. And it's really important to think about that because they're not just straight up and down. They're not like this. They actually flare out. And if you were to kind of have your palm at rest, you would notice your fingers do tend to want to flare out a little bit. So the longest finger is our middle finger. And I want to start with drawing our bones. This is kind of like where the tips of our fingers are going to be, but I want to draw our bones. And we can see there are 3 bones to the phalanges. So that means there's 3 parts to your fingers. And look at your hands, notice how they bend, see what the pieces are. The longest piece is the first knuckle. So I'm going to draw that in. Let me get rid of this center line here so it's not in our way, distracting us. So the longest piece is the first knuckle, and then the second longest piece is to the second one, and then the last piece is the shortest. So you want to have that kind of tapered look, and I'm thinking about these bones and where they connect. Now, and the one thing you're missing here is the thumb. So I know it's tempting to think, oh, well then the thumb goes right here, because that's what the other ones are doing. But the thumb is actually kind of inside your palm. It's connected in here, and you can see it back on this one. See where that is? That's where this connection is, right in here inside your palm, just like the fingers are, but your thumb actually extends out from this and up. The length of your thumb, it comes to about halfway through the first digit here, so that will help you get that length, and you can measure it out on your own hand, make your thumb go up to your palm, see how long your thumb is from there. So this is our basic bone structure. And then from here, we want to draw our fingers. And I know it's tempting to be like, oh, finger, finger, but no, really, I want you to think about the fingers as a series of pieces. So almost basically a series of cylinders that are stacked on each other. And we want to think about it this way because it'll help you when thinking about the movement of the hand. So let's say you want to bend your fingers. If you think about this as cylinders that are stacked on each other, it'll help you really get that movement. And you can see how essentially there's little gaps when you stack them like this. As you bend your finger, you get that little gap, and that's the skin kind of pulling on there. But if you think about your fingers and essentially these three pieces, it'll make life much easier for you as you're actually drawing the hands out. So from there, I'm gonna go ahead and let's lighten this up a bit. I'm gonna go ahead and build my hand in my three cylinders that are stacked on top of each other. And you can draw a little gap between them. I like to leave a little gap because that helps me think about the movement of the fingers and how they're actually going to bend, because they're not just sticks. They're actually little pieces that are stacked on top of each other. And if you draw hands like this, it'll just make it a little bit easier for you, help you kind of visualize that movement. Here we go. And then we get our pinky, which is the smallest of the fingers. So this maybe make it a little bit shorter than I had it there. Okay, so we got our digits, and there actually is a gap. If you were to look at your fingers, there's kind of like a U that connects these pieces here. And then our thumb itself, here's where it connects. We're going to have this bone here for this digit, because this one, essentially this is the metacarpal. That's actually inside, mostly inside the hand. So really the thumb's only these kind of two pieces. So from here, we then have that one little digit, one little bone there that will connect it. Actually, let me put these on this layer. So I got that one, that one. Okay, then from there, you want to think of this as like a piece that's kind of on top of the hand. And then these are our little cylinders that are connected. And I tend to make like the fingers, the tips of the fingers have a little bit of roundness to them. And this is essentially the shape of your hand, right? And this is looking at the palm, so you'll see whatever, I don't know, lifelines or whatever lines are on there. You'll see that on the top. And if you build your hand out in these shapes, using these basic forms, it'll help you think about how they move, especially when you get to the thumb. It's really important that you think about that thumb as attached here on the front, because it's going to make a big difference as you bend the thumb. So if we were to, sitting normally with this thumb, it kind of comes over like this, and then we'll have this piece here, and then this piece here, right? So it's kind of sitting out. But if you were to rotate that thumb, bring it forward, it's going to rotate on here. So it will actually come forward like this. And it'll rotate around there. It won't rotate on the side. And you can really think about that. Think about that joint. Look at your thumb. See how it moves. See how if you were to actually bend your thumb in onto your palm of your hand, what it would look like. And that will really help you think about the motion of your thumb and how you're going to use it. So, generally speaking, manly hands tend to have bigger joints. So if you're drawing like a manly hand, when you go to draw like the outside, really emphasize the joints a bit. And once again, I'm generalizing. Men will typically have bigger hands, but they have bigger joints, and they usually have more squared off like fingertips, where women's fingers tend to be a little bit more pointed. Little things like that will help you, really define your character if you want to make it male or female. And the knuckles on male hands also tend to be bigger and the shape is harder, so more angular, which is typically when you're drawing anything that's masculine, making it more angular will really help. So this is the palm of the hand. If we were to look at the back of the hand, I do want to note, I'm just going to draw this like this for now. I'm not going to do all the other details, but if we were to do this, I'm thinking the thumb is on the front side here. It's not connected to the side. But what I wanted to say is that, you will see the knuckles on the back, inside the hand itself. They're not, on the fingers. They're actually on the palm, the back palm of the hand. There's probably a word for the back of the palm. Just the back of your hand, you will see the knuckles here. You also tend to see, it depends on the person, depends on their weight and everything, but you tend to see the tendons that are in the back of the hand, and you can actually see if you look at them and move your fingers around, you can see they're going inwards at an angle, just like, your bones are. They're not straight up and down. They all move in towards the hand, and you can see as you flex your hand how these tendons will move to show how your hand is moving. So really thinking about how that works will make a big difference, when drawing your hands. So if you're drawing like the side of your hand, if someone's to make like a fist, you will really tend to see these more pronounced, even more so than if like a hand is relaxed. You can use that to show tension, really pronouncing these even more. Good things to know. Something you also don't want to forget is on your wrist, you don't want to forget the ulna. It's a bone that's on the pinky side of your wrist. You don't see it so much when you're looking at your palm, but if we were looking at the back of the hand, you can really see it. There's kind of a bone right here, and it's a super important thing. It juts out. Even on someone who's heavier set, you will see this bone just a little bit here. So think about that, how you can have that bone jutting out. Making sure that you can see those bones on the outside really helps make, your people look that much more realistic. So they're not too soft. Making sure you include those angles will make people look more real. Okay, and that is it for the hand. And it's really just about thinking about these pieces, thinking about these cylinders, how you'd bend them, will really help you, get that structure of your hand solid. And once you know that they're made of these simple pieces, then you can just think about all the different angles you can put them at, just like a mannequin, and how you can move the hand around. And it just all comes back to essentially those two squares. The fingers are the same length as the base of the palm, essentially. Okay, that is it for the hands.